Welcome to our workshop. Today, we will be constructing a hydroponic system geared for home growers and beginners. These systems will ensure that you are able to grow some of your favorite commodities with ease, efficiency, and most importantly, something that is convenient for you and your family. We will be focusing on the hydroponic approach using drip to waste. The drip to waste system focuses on utilization, optimizing limited water resources, limited space, and for persons who are unable to use high powered electricity. In some cases, this system doesn't necessarily need to be automated with the utilization of electricity. It can be manually irrigated. Food security is a number one priority for all persons. Being able to grow your own food is important for you, your family, and community. Let us dive into our video today, where you will learn how to construct your very own hydroponic system. This could become a family project. My intention is to make this simple, relatable, and most importantly, practical, where you can follow along. Here are some of the equipment that you will require for your hydroponic system build. A jigsaw using a fine teeth blade, a power drill with a appendage to make holes, a hacksaw, measuring tape, a marker using a 4-inch in width template to be able to mark out your PVC templates. This here is your end product, showcasing after you would have cut your templates to create your open area for placing your growing medium and plants. Notice how smooth the cut is and leaving this in between as a bridge to ensure that your pipe doesn't collapse when filled with growing medium. To the bottom of your pipe, you will use a fine bit to make holes along the bottom or underneath of your pipe, going at least a foot apart. So you could either use 3-inch PVC pipe or 4-inch. I will recommend using 4-inch PVC pipe to ensure that your growing medium doesn't dry out throughout the day and you end up using excessive amount of water. First step, measure your area that you're going to work with. Notice I am marking the areas in 3 points, the middle area and 2 end areas. The 2 ends are for your end caps and the middle area is where I'll be keeping where X marks the spot. The horizontal lines will be the area going to be removed after using your 4-inch templates to remove. After enforcing your end caps, let's move on to drawing our lines. This template here is straight to ensure that we are able to get straight lines, and from there it will be smooth sailing going forward. So mark your ends using your 4-inch template. Repeat this on the other end. Using a measuring tape, find the middle point by dividing in 2. After successfully identifying your midpoint, you can now identify your area where you will construct or designate for your bridge. As mentioned before, your bridge is important to reinforce the structural integrity of your PVC grow channels. That is to ensure that when you are filling your grow channels with your substrate, that the excessive amount of weight do not collapse the pipe, and with heavy breeze it will eventually erode the structural integrity of your pipe. This is what we are looking to achieve after cutting. So to start off with your cutting, use your hacksaw to make a slight incision into your PVC pipe. That is to ensure that your jigsaw blade is able to go in between your incision and cuts. This can also be done using a grinder, or you could also use other equipment. However, I prefer to use the jigsaw. It tends to give you a nice clean cut and manageable. So you could use your jigsaw here, and there is also a supportive laser light that can help you with straight cuts. Make sure do not go too fast because you can miss your stop off point. That's why it is important to draw your lines. Remember, this is not a race, so you don't need to go too fast. Take control of your machinery and take your time. Once you take your time, you're able to get a nice clean cut. And again, you repeat the same thing, making your incision with your hacksaw, and you continue with your cutting. Step 2. Frame design. Your frame design can either be constructed with 2-inch PVC pipe, regular, which is a thin PVC pipe, or you could opt for, if you have the technical support, to use RHS or any type of metal. What we are going to be doing here, we're using 4-inch PVC clamps, and we're going to space out these according to the size that we want to work with. And you're going to also be reinforcing your PVC with screws. Notice that we are pointing in different directions, and coming to the end of the video you will see exactly what we are doing. Your end caps are optional, That is to ensure that no water gets into your system. The PVC is pointing in different directions. That is to get our bridge to connect and support the structural integrity of your system. Forced by your connections to ensure that your product or your stand does not collapse. The direction in which your PVC tees are pointing is important. That is your connection bars that we will see in a few minutes how important it is. Again, using your measuring tape, your system width is 3 feet in width and your space between each clamp is 4 inches. This system ideally will work for your leafy crops. Your leafy crops doesn't necessarily need to be spaced out too wide because we are looking for a system that could be managed for all types of production. System height is approximately 3 feet in height. So your top tees where you have your clamps will be facing sideways, whereas your middle tee will be connecting to the other tees. Using your PVC glue, just to reinforce, you could wet both ends. Wetting both ends ensure that you get a proper stick and you don't have issues where your PVC will disconnect. However, you also have the option to use your screws. So both can work. However, the screws tend to work better, especially when you're having your systems that are outdoor. Continuing with your 2-inch PVC, you could connect both ends. Repeat the same process by wetting both ends, your PVC tee and your PVC. This is important to wet both ends to ensure that you're able to get that proper attraction to both ends. So by doing this, you're securing both connecting pieces. It is recommended that in this part of your build to get a little support, because I needed the extra support myself. Give it a slight push. In my case, it was easy to work with because of my height. However, if you need the assistance, please get the assistance to ensure that you have that support. Let's reinforce using screws. This part could sometimes be tricky because if you're not versed with it, it may be a little challenging. However, the key is to take your time, and once you take your time, you will succeed. So just use a little bit of pressure, and eventually your screws will go in and secure your PVC connections. Repeat this process on all 4 ends. And again, this is optional. Using PVC, however, it is something that is practical. You can readily get available at your hardware to get all your materials. Now, this system doesn't necessarily have to be so high. If you're a shorter person, you could reduce the height. If you are going to be doing this in an area that's going to be very windy, it's recommended to use a lower height because you don't want it to topple over during the day, especially when you're not home. If you're a tall person or you have pets at home, it's recommended that you use the recommended height. The entire bill material will be shown at the end of the video. Let's do a sturdiness check to make sure that we are not having any issues of collapsing. Now that we have gotten all 4 grow channels cut, let's see how we could get this into our system. Now what we will do, we will leave one end with our end caps. However, the other end, we will not put any end caps as yet. That is to ensure that it can easily slide into our stand without having any type of challenges. Watch how easy that would have slid in, and then after that, when you have your growing medium in, you could just tap on your end caps. So our workstation here is where we get all our ideas, do all our testing, and try to figure out how best we can make this approach to hydroponic easier for you. Let's fill our grow channels now. We'll be using already prepared coco peat and perlite. Our coco peat is preferred growing medium because with coco peat we are able to use a medium that is light, properly aerated because it is supported by our perlite, but most importantly it is able to hold enough water or maintain that moisture content throughout the entire day, especially for tropical conditions like ours. That means we don't have to necessarily be over watering, because too much watering could be negatively affecting our plants because it creates a favorable condition for pests and diseases. So we are going to use a medium coco peat that will maintain moisture but not too much moisture content. We also would have put earlier our holes to the bottom of our system in our grow channels to ensure that the excess water will drain out. So let's fill our grow channels with our medium that we already prepared. So it's 1 block of coco peat to 1 pound or 1.5 pounds of perlite. Mix thoroughly and put in your grow channels. You could also use other alternative mediums, however, because this is a system that is going to be small, using PVC, the lighter the material, the better for you as the grower. Moving on to step 3, your irrigation system. With your irrigation system, we'll be using a submersible water pump. From a submersible water pump, we have our reducers from 1 inch to 1/2 inch. The submersible water pump will have to be in water all the time, because once it is out of water and it is in use, it can burn off your pump. These water pumps will have built-in filters and you can increase your water flow, digital timers, And this digital timer has two independent sockets. We also will be requiring some PVC fittings, such as half-inch PVC, half-inch end caps, half-inch unions, to assist us with easily detaching your reservoir from your system. And moving on, we may ask, how could we then maintain a drip? And the drip material is a different material from your PVC. What we have here is converting from PVC to poly. So with your poly tubing, you are able to get a proper drip. But to convert from your poly tubing, you will use your adapters, and your adapters on this end is called a barbed end, which is your male part that can screw into your PVC female end, using thread seal to ensure that you don't have any leakage, and you could screw it in. Now you could either use this one, or you could rely on your PVC ball valve to regulate. In my hand here we have a drip tape. Now this drip tape has built-in emitters. That means that if you are on a slope, you don't have challenges with overwatering on each end. This built-in emitter will regulate your flow. And of course, you could use end caps, your poly end caps, to cap off your irrigation lines. So it's important to test and measure properly before cutting your irrigation lines. What we have here is your locking of your irrigation tubes. So using your blue part, you're going to screw, and by screwing, you're tightening and locking your irrigation tubes from ever coming out. So this here is called a throwback. Using this approach, you are able to ensure that any excessive pressure that may damage your pump or may have an overflow will reduce that flow by having a throwback. This also ensures that your fertilizer will be mixed right in your system. Now, using this approach of putting a union helps for when you want to clean out your system, if you want to change your reservoir, or any type of service into your system. This union is important to put in there. So these are called your checkpoints. So your checkpoints are important. So when you fill your reservoir and you have your throwback, if you don't want too much pressure going up to your plants, you can open your valve right out to reduce your pressure. And from there, if you want to expand and you want that extra pressure, you could then reduce the throwback to ensure that you get more pressure to your plants. It is important to use a cover on your reservoir. That ensures that your water doesn't heat up throughout the day and the possible algae and other contaminants getting into your system. So when building hydroponic systems, it's important to use checkpoints, and I love to use your unions. Your unions help a lot with your checkpoints. So from your reservoir, you could either use a uniseal or rubber mount, or you could drill a hole into your reservoir, whichever one is practical for you to use. So by connecting your union, you are able to have a checkpoint to, if you want to disconnect your reservoir. Because we are using all forms of checkpoints to ensure that you, the grower, have all access and control of your system, you will want to put in a ball valve in there. So from your reservoir, you have a union, and notice I'm pointing out the uniseal. That's ensure that no leakage will occur if you fill your reservoir right up. Your union to disconnect whenever you like for servicing, elbow, ball valve, another union, and that is optional, but I love to put a union there because if I need to do any type of cleaning, it is important. If you don't want to use a ball valve there, you could use the other poly tubing ball valve. However, you could use one ball valve in this case, where you could regulate the flow just in case something happens. And from there, you install all your irrigation lines, ensuring that you lock all your irrigation channels. Remember, this part you need to take your time to ensure it don't spill, and you have your end caps to reinforce any wastage from occurring. And you just lock your channel, your irrigation tube, and that's more or less how your system will be functioning. So let's continue with all 4. The place was pretty breezy today. Nice weather for building hydroponic systems. You can use a end cap over here just in case you want to flush out your system from any debris that could have possibly got into your system during your building or even your growth. Let's do a system check to ensure that we have no leakage or any structural weak points. Let's test our pump. Ensure to fill your reservoir over your pump. And let's do some planting. This system is fun. It is not expensive. It is effective, efficient for self-sustainability. And if you ever have the option to commercialize, it can easily be expanded to the point where you can use it for revenue generation. This system ensures that you are not going to be using too much resources, but most importantly, it is something that you can build on your own with our support here at the Waking Up Agriculture Foundation.